Imagine this for a second. You go to college, get a college degree, you find someone you love, get married, have kids, and then end up working a job 9 to 5 for the next 40 to 50 years of your life. Average life expectancy of a male here in the United States is, I think, 75. It might be a little bit more. But you go to school, you get a job, you get married, you have kids, and then you spend the rest of your life in a cubicle. What type of life is that? And then when you reach 75, when you're supposed to retire, you look back and you say, great, I spent 40 years of my life in an office space doing a job that I probably honestly didn't even enjoy. I just had it to pay the bills. What type of life is that? And how do you tell that to your kids growing up? That's a thought that I've been wrestling with if I ever have kids, which I don't even know if that's possible necessarily unless I find, a significant other or a partner. But the cost of raising a kid has exponentially gone up with like the cost of living and like the cost of trying to raise a kid from 0 to 18 years because you want to be in their life. And I think about the life that I've had. I grew up abroad, which is like a great life to have. You don't fully appreciate it until you're much older, and then you want to slap yourself for like not fully appreciating it when traveling was much cheaper and not being paid on your dime. You know what I mean? But if I ever had kids, I don't know if I would want them to go the typical 9 to 5 route. And I know that's easy for me to say because I'm 28 years old. The circumstances of life change once you get older and stuff like that. And I know like people have their own thoughts about like entrepreneurship being glorified with all these like gurus that are on YouTube and stuff like that. But it does make you wonder from all the educational content that I've consumed over the past like couple of years when it comes to like entrepreneurship and just everything in general, it makes you wonder like that is the mode that 99% of the population either chooses unconsciously or just does anyway because they don't see another alternative. And then the second path is basically the path of entrepreneurship and working for yourself and all that good stuff, which is very hard to do from what people have told me. And I don't pretend to be an entrepreneur. I'm more of a wannapreneur because of the fact that like I get on here on my soapbox and I preach to y'all about it. But I'm just saying from like a philosophical standpoint, you kind of look at like an imaginary life like that that's being lived by 99% of the population like here in the United States, and it just kind of makes you wonder and look back like is that really like what it's all about? Like then I fully understand now what people mean by having like a quarter life crisis, a midlife crisis, and then crises when you're in your 50s, 60s, and 70s when you realize you haven't done anything with your life. I completely understand that now. And I never fully did until I was exposed to the idea of the fact that there might be alternate ways to live your life. And I'm not talking about entrepreneurship. For those of you who don't know, there is a growing trend over the past 10 years, which is called being a digital nomad. And a digital nomad essentially is someone that can work hypothetically wherever they want to, whenever they want to, and make an independent source of income from either like a business that they own or they work for a remote asynchronous company that just doesn't have any meetings. And so like this idea of being a digital nomad appeals to a lot of people because they're just like, I can work whenever I want to, I can work whenever I want to, and then I can make as much money as I, potentially want to if I own that own business, which is like location independent and etc. It's interesting because like coming from an international background, you hear a lot about like people that are digital nomads. Like I remember when I lived in Cambodia and I was growing up as like a teenager, I would hear indirect mentions of like these people that can like work abroad on their own dime, on their own schedule, et cetera, et cetera. And the idea always stuck with me later on as I grew older. And then, when I entered the workforce at like, when I graduated college, that was like 2017. So like 2021. And then you work your actual first 9 to 5, and then you react in horror because you realize you're spending a lot of your time at a desk or at an office and stuff like that. So like the one the one downside of like the internet is that you can see everything. Like you can all these people from all these walks of life talk about like their differences in life and how they make money, etc. And so like one fascinating topic is like this idea of being a digital nomad. And again, just like entrepreneurship, it's over glorified because like all the digital nomad videos that you search up always show you like, oh my god, you can work from your laptop like on the beach and stuff like that. When in reality, working on the beach is the worst thing that you can do because the sun overheats your computer and then you run out of battery extremely fast. Plus, not to mention, there's the sand, there's water on your computer, all that stuff. So it's like an over glorified idea, which I find very humorous because you buy into that very quickly. It's like, oh my god, like she can visit like these waterfalls in Bali, hike the volcanoes of Iceland or something like that. You know what I mean? So it's like it's very interesting because like you want that type of ideal life. I mean, I do. You know what I mean? Like I'd love to be able to like work when I want to, where I want to, and make enough so that you could survive no matter where you are in the world. And I'm not saying that's like not, it's not impossible to do. It just requires you to set up a bunch of things in your life and your professional career to the point where you can live that type of lifestyle if you so choose down the line. The only downside is that it takes years to get to that point because or you can work for free in exchange for room and board. There's organizations that let you do that while you live in Indonesia or something like that. But for me, I've always been the type of person, as self-entitled as this sounds, to have like I want like a high standard of living no matter where I live. You know what I mean? Like I want certain creature comforts. I want to make a certain amount of money. Like I don't want to live in a hostel for like a full year while I work on like my online business. I've never been that type of person. A nice hotel, not bad. Like nearby grocery store. You know what I mean? Like a gym, that type of stuff. And I'm not saying hostels are bad, but at the same time, like, I'm the type of person that, like, hostels and stuff, yeah, that's nice when I was younger, but now as I enter my 30s, it's like, that's great, but, like, for a short-term stay, but for a long-term stay, it's not exactly what you would want to do, especially if you try to be, like, a digital nomad or whatever. But it's just, like, it's interesting because, like, I've been watching these videos about, like, the life of a digital nomad, and like I compare it to like my own experience right now working a typical 9 to 5 where I go into the office sometimes during the week. And the idea is so appealing. It's like, oh my god, like you ditch the desk and you go to Bali or something like that. And that's not reality, which is the funny part, because you watch all these YouTube videos and it lures you into like a false sense of reality where it's just like, wait, I can actually do that? Like I can travel like every single month to a new place? Yeah, you could, but you'd get burnt out very quickly. And then you'd also run out of money if you're not actually working. You see, here's the thing. Like we'll go over some very fascinating advantages and disadvantages of digital nomads from what I've seen all over the place, and like reading a lot of stories and listening to a bunch of podcasts while you clean the house. So like for example, the obvious advantages to being a digital nomad are you can work where you want to. Like you want to work in Indonesia for 3 months, go find a co-working space. You know what I mean? You can potentially make as much money as you want to if you have a consulting service or a service that you provide. But if you work for an actual company with a regular 9 to 5, you have to work certain hours, you are paid a certain rate, you might have to pay more in taxes if you live abroad for a little bit. So anyway, those are like the advantages, or at least the more obvious ones when you see like all the YouTube videos. And so like, the idea of exploring another country and like living there for 6 to 12 months out of the year and stuff like that, that's grand. But the thing is that a lot of these videos won't kind of tell you the actual like dark side of being a digital nomad as well as the reality of it. So number one, a disadvantage is that from what I've seen and from what I've read, it's an incredibly lonely lifestyle because like for some people it depends on the frequency. So like some people like to switch countries every month, others every 3. You get the idea. And so like if you're constantly switching between new environments like all the time, how are you supposed to meet people and make friends? That's one big downside that I've seen. Number two, a lot of these digital nomads don't make anything. I was kind of shocked. As not all of them, not obviously, like that's generalizing everybody that does that lifestyle, but from all the interviews that I've watched, and it's a very small sample size, I know they don't make a lot of money, which is very interesting. They make enough to cover like their basic expenses of like living in a place or like a co-living space or whatever, but they don't actually make a lot. And I was kind of shocked because I was like, well, these people like live, magic lives and stuff like that. I thought they were all like millionaires, you know what I mean? But no, they don't make a ton. But I guess you trade that off when you want that type of lifestyle. It's like the freedom to go wherever you want to, but you don't make as much. So it's like they don't make as much as they say, or from what you think. It's an incredibly lonely lifestyle. And what I've seen a lot of as well, I follow a bunch of digital nomad channels because I'm curious about it. And a common thing that I've seen is burnout. It's very interesting. With an overglorified lifestyle like that, you would think that there is a constant sense of adventure and excitement. It's like, oh my god, I can do this for the rest of my life, and I can travel to like all the countries in the world and stuff like that. A lot of these people that have done the lifestyle for many years have also noted a sense of burnout, because think about it. You're traveling to like all these different places, right? You're either alone or you're with a significant other or you have a family and they're also traveling with you. You're constantly meeting new people, you're constantly shifting new locations, you're doing stuff all the time outside of work, if you actually work at all. And eventually you get to the point where it's just exhausting. Like these people that do this for years, from what they've said in interviews and podcasts that I've watched, they get so burnt out, they actually go back to the opposite, which is the stable lifestyle or base that they like left behind 20 years ago. It's kind of fascinating. So like that's like another big downside of like the whole thing is like eventually after a certain point you would get burnt out, assuming that you're not switching places like every 3 to 6 months. So there's advantages and disadvantages to every single lifestyle. Now, is it worth it? Personally, I've never done it before, and I would love to try it out for, let's say, like 3 months if I ever like, built YouTube to the point where it could cover, expenses, or if I built my other creative project out to the point where it could do that too, or a combination of both. That could be pretty cool. But I'd like to try it for like 3 months, maybe in a place of the world, like Europe, for example. I'm like half French, so like I have my EU passport. I'd love to live in Lisbon for like 3 months. You know what I mean? Maybe not during the summer because it's warm as heck, but it could be very interesting to try that lifestyle and then see how because like the way that you live is very different. It's like from what I've seen, there's a company called Selena that's like one of the bigger companies that does like retreats and like digital nomad things like that. And they have places all around the world. You rent out like I think a small apartment or something like that, and then you can live there for let's say 3 months, right? And then you have a co-working space where like you work not with other people, but you're surrounded by people. And then sometimes they'll have like group events, group communities, classes that you can take. So it's very cool because like that's the way that you meet people. And then there's also exploring like hostels, for example, which is a great way to meet travelers. But most people move on after like, a couple of days here and there. So it's very interesting because like I would love to be able to try that type of lifestyle one day, after I build stuff. To, like I mentioned before, you have to unless you quit your job and you just decide to do it. But I've never been that type of person. I always need like a plan, like I've always been like a backup planner. It's like, okay, I'm not gonna do this if I don't have this set up, and it might take me a little bit longer to reach that point, but I'd rather have a roof over my head than be homeless, you know what I mean? So it's just something fascinating where like you see this growing trend of, everyone wants to be a digital nomad in 2024 and make money online and all this stuff, and then you start digging into it a little bit more, and once you get past like the cloud 9 aspect where it's just like it's so cool, and it's like you can travel when you want to, make as much as you want to, work when you want to, and then you start like looking into like the two sides of the coin, advantages and disadvantages. It's like, well, is it really that good? Like a lot of these people don't make a lot of money, which is not it's not everything in the world, I know that, but like, they don't make a lot. they have to travel after a certain point when their visa expires, you know what I mean? And they also experience some burnout after a while, and it can get very lonely if you don't have a significant other. You know, you don't want to be like the passport bro that like literally goes to a different country and like, you know, gets a wife because, you know, she wants to be an American with a green card. You know, it's just like you don't want to be that type of guy. At least I don't, and stuff like that. So it's fascinating because like I'm living like, you know, the regular 9 to 5 job right now, and like, you know, I go into the office twice a week, 3 times a week, and then like you watch these videos about digital nomads and you're like, is that real? Like people actually do this, you know? But then there's caveats. It's like they don't make a lot. They still have to work. They still have to work a set amount of hours. So it's not like, I just forgot about that too. It's not like they can literally like, yeah, they can work out at 12 o'clock in the day, or they can, you know, work out at like 3. It doesn't matter. Like they still have to work like a core amount of hours during the day. So it's like the reality is that 95% of the time they're still at a desk no matter what. They're just in another country, and they can, you know, choose to do whatever they want like after work. You know what I mean? So it's like kind of funny that there's a comparison between the two that like stretches between both worlds. So anyway, that was a dumb analogy with that, but I just realized that's also like another reality where it's just like being a digital nomad. Yeah, it seems very appealing and stuff like that, and I would like to try it one day. You know what I mean? Like I'd love to be able to like go to, let's say, like Medellin, Colombia, or somewhere in Europe, you know what I mean, and like live that type of lifestyle for 3 months, see if I enjoy it, and then like eventually if I get older and I still make, you know, more hypothetically in my career, it would be nice to, you know, 6 months out of the year you spend it in Portugal and like you come back to DC, or something like that. That'd be such a fascinating life to live. But that's the paradox of being a digital nomad, and then also with the opener of like, you know, you spend 40 years of your life in a cubicle, you look back and you're like, you know, dang, did I really live life to the fullest? So hope you like the video. Like and subscribe for like more existential questions that I answer. Keep an eye out for more educational videos. I have a series of videos that are coming out, which I plan to make about the evergreen skills that I covered a couple weeks ago, about like how to build a community. So we talked about writing already. The next one is going to be about sales, which is going to be very interesting. I am not a professional salesman by any chance, but I firmly believe that we all sell ourselves in some way, and not in a dirty way. Get your mind out of the gutter. I know exactly what you thought. But I meant like your personality. Like when you're filming a YouTube video, you're selling your own personality to your audience, because they follow you for a reason, unless you follow me for just to laugh at me, but I really hope not. And you sell your experience and your skill set to companies, you know, for a job, and to friends that take interest in your hobbies. So everything is give and take. So it's very interesting. We get into like marketing and sales and all that good stuff. And then what I'm also going to do is, for the last part of this video, I'm just going to tell you really quickly that I think I'm going to come out with a weekly newsletter for this. And it's the way that it's going to happen is I'm going to pick one video per week, and then I'm going to write 500 to 1,500 words, like in the form of a letter, so that if this YouTube channel ever gets taken down for some reason, you never know, you can still have access to my personal, you know, thoughts and what I like to produce in terms of content, just in a longer form, which you can read. So I've already written the first draft for the first letter. It goes with Monday's video of being in nature and, you know, having to recharge from life. So I think it'll come out like probably every Wednesday. It'll be like 500 to 1,500 words. It'll be very interesting to write in using the pastor framework as well that we covered in the writing video. If you don't know what that is, go check out the writing video that I covered with the pastor method of like starting with a problem and then ending with results, I believe it is. And so that would be the newsletter that would accompany every week. And I'll make an announcement, obviously, like when that happens and stuff like that. And I'll put it in the comment section as well. So definitely keep an eye out for future videos that are educational, not just rambling. and then also the newsletter, which will be an extended version of one of the videos. And I might even film new versions of other videos using that, because that technically is a YouTube script. So keep an eye out for those. Love y'all.